I don't know how to do that.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep. So I tried recording, but it says please request record permission from the meeting host.
All right, let's see where we get that done. And by the way, we are already live on Twitter.
All right, perfect.
So for anybody streaming in, so you should go to the Give Bitcoin page and grab it from there, and you can retweet it.
I got it. Yeah.
I'm going to do the same from my own personal here. There we go. And done. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so where do I need to grab this permission to record thing? I wonder.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works on Zoom. Let's see. Settings, maybe.
How about I just do record to the cloud, and then I can find that file and give it to you after?
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, if you can record on your own, that works.
All right, so great, it's recording now.
All right, perfect. Welcome to the Noted Bitcoin podcast. This is your co-host, Pierre Rochard. I'm joined here physically in Austin with my friend, Michael Goldstein, and co-host, and now almost a married man as well.
Yeah.
So congratulations to you, Michael.
Thank you.
You know what everyone should
Upset.
Oh yeah, is that bad OPSEC to reveal your marital status? I guess, but I feel like it improves your OPSEC because now people don't try to socially engineer you by trying to flirt with you and
Yeah. Sorry, I'm taken.
Yeah, exactly. In any case, that's a tangent. We're here joined. Well, we'll see if it is a tangent with Cory from GiveBitcoin. Cory, how are you?
I'm good, Pierre. Hey, Bitstein. Good to see you guys. Good
to see you. So Cory and I know each other because we're both on the board of advisors for the controversial but pretty awesome Riot Blockchain publicly traded company, which is a Bitcoin mining operation. But in any case, we're not here for that today. We're here for GiveBitcoin. So I wanted to have you on because I've heard Stefan talk about it, and I've heard you obviously talk about it, and I find it fascinating as a way of kind of getting the pre-coiners, the new coiners involved, because it is exhausting to be out there and onboarding friends and family without kind of a support system, let's call it. So yeah, I wanted to have you come on and give the pitch about GiveBitcoin, and then we can just talk about random Bitcoin stuff also.
I love random Bitcoin stuff, and yeah, also happy to talk about this, and also happy to give a little teaser on something else we have coming out in January that I think you're privy to. So yeah, I mean, it basically is exactly as you described. We set this up to be kind of a scaled evangelism product to kind of, you can evangelize one-to-one, and some people have a bit of a media platform and can do some evangelism, via media. But, as Naval says, the two ways to scale now are media and code. And so we're trying to incorporate some media, but do a lot of code essentially to make it. Getting a little echo there.
Yep.
Making it easier to use code essentially to scale out evangelism. So, the product that we came up with after having the idea in April is headlined "Give plus time lock plus educate equals Bitcoiner," and we hope to be successful at that. A preponderance of the time. And the idea is that if Pierre, you have a cousin or a college friend that isn't a Bitcoiner yet, but has the makings of being a good Bitcoiner because they're human, you can give them a little bit of Bitcoin, time lock it for a year, and then over the next 12 months, we'll deliver a rock solid, like world-class introduction to Bitcoin, being put together with some of the top Bitcoin thinkers in the world over those 12 months. Including a lot in sort of the second half of the education after hopefully you've got them hooked about like how to actually use it and putting them through some exercises and things like that. And, and hopefully they're sweeping it right off of there on the day of the time lock and going off grid and doing all kinds of awesome things. But that's kind of the idea behind GiveBitcoin.
So what does the education process look like? I guess we should start with the first step, which is giving.
Yeah. Yeah, we should break that down. So you can't give your own Bitcoin. We want you to hodl all your Bitcoins. So the only thing you can do is, as we say, liquidate dirty fiat for beautiful orange coin. So you're buying in a fiat denomination and buying some Bitcoin for somebody.
Gotcha. And what are the amounts that you can buy? Is it kind of like a gift card fixed amount, or can you just put any amount?
You can range it, yeah. So it's anywhere from $5,000 to $5,000 worth. And then you can do it one time, or you can do recurring. So if you wanted to kind of start saving for a niece over time, dollar cost average into her Bitcoin account or something, you can totally do that.
Because this is time locked to them, I assume this means that in the gift giving, you have them set up a wallet.
Yeah, so it's actually custodial. So this leverages Prime Trust, which is kind of a large custodian. And they have Fireblocks on the back end, which a lot of people use. So this is the same exact setup used for all US customers by Binance, Huobi, OKX, Bittrex, and a bunch of funds and other businesses. I originally tried to do this with on-chain time lock and other different ways, and there's really no good way to do it without a couple things that you sacrifice. One is some people just are not going to get there, and so like a minor or a grandma or something like that, not your grandma, but some grandmas, might not be capable of self-custody right out of the gate. So we think it actually makes more sense to sort of reach everybody by saying, hey, it's custodial, but then you can sweep it when you want to. And then also we need it because if you're doing a lot of handling, then you actually do need to go state by state and do the 49 MTLs and the bit license and the federal MSB and all of that. So to get in market quickly and hopefully accelerate this next bull run, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's been a big problem. Being able to hand it over to new people. So like, very worst case scenario is in the case of inheritance. You might decide like, oh, you want to have in your will or something, Bitcoin, you say time lock it for that person, but it requires them to have the keys, and it requires them to have actually held onto those keys and kept them safe that whole time. If those keys were stolen in the meantime, then whoever stole it will have access to them on the time lock, or they get lost or whatever else. So I guess what you're saying is the custodian time locks it for themselves, you guys, such that you can't even hand the Bitcoins over to them
That's right.
until then. And that's when you reveal a withdrawal button to them. It's like
That's exactly it.
You've earned this gift now.
Yeah, it's exactly right. All that happens basically is the recipient has view access during the time lock, and it switches to full access at the end of the time lock. There's actually one other really important feature that I think makes this super attractive for some of the more active evangelists, which is that it's double opt-in gifting. So basically you can give a gift to someone, but the transaction does not occur until the recipient actually opens the account and claims the Bitcoin. So you can go to like, a roofer conference or some, shitcoin meetup or something like that, and know for sure that nobody's going to be, debiting your bank account or your credit card unless they're actually signing up for like the 12 months of maximalist education.
Perfect. And so, yeah, let's get into the education. How are we indoctrinating people into the cult?
Well, I mean, this is a nice thing. This is where you can kind of stand on the shoulders of giants a bit. And I feel like there are certain themes that have kind of won and bubbled to the surface in a big way in the last couple of years. So there's kind of like, you can do like intro to Bitcoin, what's the problem with money and some of these things. And then it's really just about making sure that you kind of optimize it the best for the position that a new coiner is in and how you actually deliver that. So it's the medium is the message and things like that. So our author is a very skilled tech educator and writer. He's been doing it for almost 20 years. He's written a couple of New York Times bestsellers in the space. He was the author of the 37 Signals blog, Signal versus Noise, like the guys that created Basecamp and Ruby on Rails and stuff like that. So he's been doing this for a long time. And I brought him into Bitcoin. So it's been awesome to kind of like use kind of a new coiner's experience over the last couple of years as he's gotten up to speed and gotten an appreciation for it. So you start with that. And then, our advisory board, people that are actually on the cap table and own part of the company, include people like Safety, Stefan Livera, Jan Pritzker, Matt Odell, a bunch of other people as well. Ragnar, you need some, some sovereignty and some protection mixed in there in some chapters. also people with kind of like a more mainstream, let's get on TV type of voice are either investors or advisors. So people like Tom Lee from frequent CNBC and Melton from CoinShares, former DCG. So people with like a lot of audience that can get out there. But on the education side, it's really the podcasters and the authors that are chipping in a big way. And now we have even more attention from Jan, which is great because he's officially joined the company as CTO.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have Jan on board.
Very cool. And so let's see, 12 months. Is that how do you ensure compliance, right? Make sure that people are engaged and stay engaged, both from the perspective of like GiveBitcoin growing as a business, but also in terms of them being interested in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of think through the like what you can and can't do, like I can't have any control over the dollars nor the Bitcoin ever. We can't touch or access either throughout this whole process, which means like we don't have a way to like stop the time lock from ending on the custodian side. Like when it's over, it's over. So basically what we're thinking about doing over time, and obviously you've got like a small team and constraints and things like that, but we do think it'll be fun to put people through some exercises. And so what we're thinking of doing is, maybe by Christmas of 2020, set aside a stash of sats that have to be earned by completing certain exercises. But in the meantime, it's really just like, hey, we're doing our best to hook you, and we're going to have a better success rate than you would trying to scale across 50 people or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we're delivering it in text, in a Q&A format, in audio. So we have somebody reading the questions for each chapter, and of course the voice of Bitcoin guy Swan reading the answers from Crypto Economy Podcast, because I don't really hear Bitcoin with a different voice. It would just be weird. So there's that. And then as we get a little bit more budget and more traction, we'll add, videos and explainer videos, beautiful videos about a cryptocurrency that don't encourage people to buy shitty ones. I think is sorely needed in the space.
Yeah. Why didn't you call it Give Crypto?
It's funny you should ask, because we like the people that we're giving Bitcoin to. Like we're talking friends and family, like people you actually like. Why would you do them the disservice?
Yeah, I always feel bad. I've seen things where they, airdrop various shit coins on people in developing nations, and I feel so bad. Those developing, they're already under such terrible monetary regimes. They need sound money more than even us.
And they get to beat us.
Yeah.
by shit coiners.
Well, I mean, we are working on Hex for Kosovo.
Of course, just out of spite.
Just that's happening, but that's a side project. It's like a 20% project.
Hex is a great name for that. You're just like putting a hex on them.
Yeah, really. But Hex is an ironic name. So is Ethers, though, because like normally like Ethers is just like something that doesn't exist. It's the
nothingness.
Yeah. It's just yeah. So I don't know. The branding has gone downhill ever since Satoshi came into space. He was the one who got it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I became like a hardcore maximalist by like early 2018, I would say. And it only grew, and I got, sort of more and more toxic. And then I launched a company, and then you have to like engage with normal humans again. And you have to like, be sensitive that somebody might be interested in what you're doing, but also have invested in some other project, or somebody that's rehypothecating, or, maybe super psyched that they were in on like the angel round or seed round of Coinbase. And that's like way outperformed Bitcoin over the same period, so like you get into these little smackdown conversations, and you try to, I'm trying to do a, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, a little bit, given that we have investors and a bit of a fiduciary duty to not piss people off too much.
And also you can just make the positive case for Bitcoin. Like
exactly.
Entirely, there's a lot of material there.
Right, and I'm sure you might, have stuff to say on this, where it's like, just in the process of educating someone on this stuff, everything basically that they're going to be using in, say, Ethereum. Ethereum is almost in a way like a superset of Bitcoin. Now, they don't have the UTXO model, so something like that is going to be different. But the way that you handle keys and thinking about blockchains and all of that is embedded in Bitcoin already. So when you're trying to get someone on board, even if for all crypto, starting with just, hey, let's just look at Bitcoin, really get a sense of Bitcoin, and then, you know, if somehow we didn't do a good enough job and you're still interested in other things, you have the, you know, intellectual toolkit to be able to go explore those.
Yeah, we have a delicate section. I think it's going to be either chapter 5 or chapter 6, and probably like half a chapter, but it's like, if you don't have an opinion and don't talk about all the rest of the coins in some way, then they're going to go somewhere else for that. So you might as well take it on and do some educating there. Not promoting, just explaining like what they are and why Bitcoin is really the only one that matters. And, you know, my own personal view is like, I just see the upside of Bitcoin being like, you know, 100 to 200 trillion or something like that. And, you know, everything else, you know, may one day add up to like 1 trillion. So even just looking at it like that, you know, where are you going to spend your time? You don't even have to slag it. Like, you could just totally say like, totally cool experimentation, I love tech, but like the opportunity and the risk reward of something that seems like damn near certain to go where we think it's going to go, versus total experiments that may never actually accrue any value to their asset. It's just silly to even bother.
People like to, you know, shit on Bitcoin because it's kind of just money, and they sort of imply that's boring. That's not as exciting as all this other stuff, but that's kind of a strength for Bitcoin in the sense that money is half of every economic exchange on the planet. So the actual growth potential for that is much greater than, you know, your very niche DeFi product.
Yeah, so, I think that's right.
With that in mind, like in the education, what kind of balance is there between the technical and the economic?
Yeah, so I think, you know, for a new coiner, I mean, here's the thing. If such a small subset of people, when you think about bringing like the next 21 million people into Bitcoin, that's what we want to do. We want to bring another 21 million people owning at least $100 or more of Bitcoin, which is 4x from where we are today. There's about 7 million people today that have $100 or more of Bitcoin. We think that the vast majority of those people are not going to be super techie, and that the super techie people usually have kind of a techie friend that's kind of into Bitcoin. So like when I go out to, you know, Boston for the holidays and I hang out with my brother-in-law and he's like a hardware engineer and a software engineer, like, dude, I'm just going to try to get him to like set up a node. You know, we're going to download Node Launcher and get started, and he'll probably end up buying like a Raspberry Pi setup or something like that, or a Nodl or something. I don't need to do it this way with him. But, you know, I think the other 95% that are not going to come into Bitcoin through the interest in the technology, I think the economic argument is probably the good way to lead, and like the societal arguments and, you know, become a better person type of things, and, you know, discover the paleo diet. I don't know.
It's funny, I saw a poll that was done that showed that 50% of people who are under the age of 30 anticipate buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that like the demographic wave is going to, and you know, I was actually surprised though, like it was like 8% of people who are over the age of 60 were going to buy Bitcoin, which is like, I want to meet that 8%. They sound cool.
It's all of it's Gary Leland's homeboys up in
yeah, exactly. Yeah. The boomer crew.
Boomers for Bitcoin, baby.
Yeah.
No, it is super interesting. And, you know, it's actually one thing we very quickly realized we wanted was a way for younger people who are into Bitcoin but don't have a lot of money to stack with to be able to request Bitcoin really easily through the platform. So we're seeing a lot of that for Christmas right now, and we're actually now marketing it pretty heavily. But you can just go on the site and hit request, and then very easily get a URL and send that to your friends and family, relatives, and ask them to get you Bitcoin instead of a sweater.
Well, let's be inclusive. There's Christmas, there's Hanukkah, there's
graduation, weddings, Valentine's Day. What girl doesn't want Bitcoin for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, absolutely. Get her a box of hardware wallets.
Honey,
Yeah.
I got you this scorpion box.
I mean, do you think there are also, I mean, I guess the purpose of this is for like people you directly know. Because when you were saying request, I was also imagining just like a sponsorship program. So it's like, for someone to, pop in my DMs, like looking for a sponsorship from Bitstein for Bitcoins. And like, here's why I'm kind of like wanting to learn more about Bitcoin. And I'm like, okay, I can throw this person $5.
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. And, YouTubers can stream all day and put up their link and get people to give them Bitcoin if people are so inclined. That will absolutely work.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. The live streaming thing is, and we're doing a live stream right now, but I just find it fascinating how big Twitch grew and then got acquired by Amazon. Like, to me, it seems like the media format of the future. And they heavily monetize it, in Twitch by sending payments and whatnot. So I think that internationally, that's not going to scale. And so something like GiveBitcoin would be able to scale much better than their kind of like in-app stuff.
Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, one of the things that we're looking at, so we obviously are, partnered with someone who's heavily regulated in the US. You kind of have to go country by country. Like on the back end, we could actually serve 140 currencies or 140 countries in like every major currency today. But we have to go by, by the laws of each country and do a regulatory review and maybe do some licensing and stuff like that. But our referral program, so we split half of our fees with referrers in perpetuity. So anybody that's like bringing people to the platform, you can stack sats like a beast just by referring people to GiveBitcoin. The whole world can do that and, just like play on social media and try to get people in the US to sign up for GiveBitcoin. And we're figuring out how to do those payments. And I'm actually talking to Pete from Bottle on Thursday to see if there's something we can do there, but, with their team and their code or whatever. But our goal is to pay people out via Lightning for the referral program, like anywhere on the globe.
Awesome. That's great.
Hopefully we can figure it out.
Can we get more into the 12-month curriculum and like, what are parts 1, 2, and 3?
So we have the chapter 1 is completely done and it's already been recorded by Guy, and it's if I can get the email and the whole thing set up, all the people that received in the first 30 days will get it on Wednesday morning, right before I go live with Safety. So that'll be fun. And then chapter 2 is kind of in like final draft, final comment stage. That'll come out in January, so like January 15th-ish. Chapter 1 is basically like intro to Bitcoin and just like trying a few different ways to get them hooked and ideally get them reading ahead, because we'd like nothing more than for somebody to get the first one, and after we have everything done, charge through and read the whole book basically, or listen to the whole book and then smash buy right through us, because you can buy for yourself as well. And then chapter 2 is kind of like that whole, like, what's the problem with money? Getting into the foundation, like help you understand, this aberration of the last 100 years out of the previous 5,000 and how weird this is to be in this state, and how much better it can be with Bitcoin. And then we start to get into like what is actually Bitcoin, like the technology and the protocol and things like that by chapter 3. Later chapters, we've hit some of the topics, but yeah, we'll definitely be teaching, about wallets and nodes and private transactions and a little bit of OPSEC in there, the future of Bitcoin and sort of some of the, we have like one chapter that's kind of like the middle chapters of Safe's book, where you got to hit people with that after they've got a little bit of a foundation. But yeah, this is like what you were saying, Bitstein, like when you put the whole world on one unit of account, you can just sort of like make a bigger market, and there's network effects behind that and kind of make everything better. So yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like a thorough education.
Yeah, and we're going to put it out as a book and like an ebook and a physical book and an audio book as well. It's called The Gift of Bitcoin.
Very cool. Now you said you wanted to tease something.
I did, yeah. So you caught me kind of tweeting about it, and if you're on Twitter a bit right now, I think Haas is kind of like jumping the gun a little bit. But you know, some people realized that you actually can just give to yourself, and you can also give recurring through the platform. And so essentially we have the first kind of nationwide, you know, Bitcoin only DCA product out right now. So yeah, the teasing is we're actually splitting that out because it has like a totally different audience and marketing funnel, and you know, probably should be a little less cuddly, maybe black instead of blue, things like that. But yeah, it's called Save Bitcoin instead of Give Bitcoin, and it's all about Bitcoin as a savings technology, as you guys hammer home over and over again. I think that's been the winning meme of the last couple of years of like what Bitcoin is really for, is like storing your wealth. And so we really just want to facilitate that with the cleanest, easiest way. You know, just like set your amount, say monthly or weekly, and enter your payment details, just ACH, that's it, and you're done. That's it.
Seems like a great way, like right after someone finishes with Give Bitcoin, you funnel them right into the Save Bitcoin because you're ready. But it'll actually be interesting. A metric you should look for is how many people sign up for Save Bitcoin before they're even done with Give Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah, so they're going to be, you know, 2 different URLs, but then, you know, if you click buy on the Give Bitcoin product, it'll just launch Save Bitcoin, and then we'll have like a place on Save.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to give to somebody else? I mean, really, all we're trying to do is just like
track the email address on them, just see like
who came from where.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I mean, our mission is just to create lots and lots of new Bitcoiners and, you know, indoctrinate them to become hodlers as much as possible, and then get them to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. And so you can buy Bitcoin for yourself with Save, or you can buy it for somebody else with Give, or you can get somebody else to buy for you also.
All the above. So one of the conversations that's come up on Bitcoin Twitter, let's call it, but it's actually more like crypto Twitter where this conversation was happening, was like, can Bitcoin be mainstream, or do we have to accept that it's just going to be this niche thing forever?
Is there a question in that? I mean, obviously I'm putting my chips on mainstream for sure.
Right, yeah. And so I want to hear like what your thought process is on that, and kind of pushing back on that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's this thing that once it gets hold of people, it has a very low churn rate. There are very few people that come to Bitcoin and then leave. Like, it's almost nonsensical to do so if you actually got to the point of understanding it. Certainly there were people that didn't know anything about it that bought at 18,000 and got wrecked, and, you know, aren't going back to Bitcoin until it's 100,000. And that's fine. Yeah. But people that actually got to the point of, like, you know, having the light turn on and being excited about it, engaging with other Bitcoiners, like, you know, it's really hard to lose those people. So we need to hit, you know, the equivalent of, you know, the early Facebook team saying like, okay, we need, you know, 10 friends within 14 days. Like, what do we need to get people to do as early as possible so that they are just like hooked, and we know for sure that, you know, that person has gone down the rabbit hole. And that's what we're trying to find out. We're going to be analyzing everything and analyzing paths and open rates and all of this stuff, just trying to like figure out. We've got a pretty expert, you know, 4-hour work week style email marketer who's also a hardcore Bitcoiner. Not announced, but it's somebody you guys know. Just working with us for a couple months setting that stuff up. And I think we'll end up getting like pretty good at understanding how to create a Bitcoiner. We'll have a lot of data on it.
As I see it, you know, I think Pierre hit the nail on the head with like speculative attack. I think I guess you undersold the level that Bitcoin needs to get before it really starts going, because we're really just going straight for the big boss, the USD. But because of this, like, money is this thing that is a much bigger macro thing than any one individual, which is why I think that these people who don't think it's going to be mainstream kind of miss the point, because people are going to be kind of forced to use Bitcoin because there's going to be this macro shift. So the value I see here is like, Give Bitcoin is a way, like, how do we prepare people so that they're not caught blindsided in a completely different world, and how do we get them trained for this world that we see coming?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're already teasing some interesting little, you know, marketing messages. I was thinking about like how can you make 2 months salary last forever? And so it's like, how can you make 2% of your salary last forever? I think what we're going to target is like whatever your top line pre-tax dollar is, put 2% of it into Bitcoin every month. See how that works. So we talk a lot about not mainstream adoption, but critical adoption. So thinking about this as sort of like a game where we know that it's like impossible to kill Bitcoin, but it would still be possible to make it like very difficult for Bitcoiners if you shut down on ramps and off ramps. And, you know, if 7 more Brad Stevens got, or what's his name? Is that the guy?
Brad Sherman.
Brad Sherman. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
His office is like 10 miles from here. I live like half a mile from the border of his district. I'm kind of angry. I wish I was across the street, but
I'm live streaming from Brad Sherman's office.
A nice fiat system you got here, Brad. Be a real shame if someone created a unstoppable digital currency.
Right.
Here in Austin, what our gentleman from InfoWars, Alex Jones, did was that he rented, I guess, he must have rented it.
I don't know. He drove it through Manhattan too. So
an armored personnel carrier with a bullhorn on top, screaming at people that Epstein didn't kill himself. I feel like we should adopt a similar approach.
Yeah, just going on about fiat. And
So this is where it gets really interesting because, you know, we think a lot, and I think a lot about like geopolitics. That's been a lot of my just sort of like self-study over the years. I've worked for big tech companies and, you know, now evil, but formerly pretty good companies like McKinsey and Company. I've always been a big fan of like Stratfor and Peter Zion. And that's kind of like, you know, I gather a lot from that. They got China wrong, but most everything else they got right. And it's not me calling. And I don't think it's necessarily about mass adoption. I think it's about critical adoption, particularly in the US. And again, this isn't about killing Bitcoin. It's just about, could you make it like really difficult and like put it off for a few decades instead of sort of bringing about that beautiful orange future a little faster. And so we think that it probably is along the line of lots of other cultural trends that have only required like 3 or 4%, you know, the intransigent minority to flip, and then kind of the whole society is required to play ball. So if you play that out in the US, you know, it's probably like 12 to 15 million people or something like that, you know, somewhere between 10 and 15 million people that need to know enough about Bitcoin and appreciate it and own some to really completely inoculate Bitcoin against, you know, any sort of like US government attack. So you can say both ways, like there's two main sort of vectors of attack for Bitcoin. And one is, you know, having a lot of like totally sovereign Bitcoiners, and the other one is just having a lot of people who care about Bitcoin. So it's kind of like the decentralization thing, and then it's also like this critical adoption level.
I really like that mentality, because the further, you know, Bitcoin just enmeshes it in society, the harder it's obviously is to roll it back in any capacity. So with that, it seems what GiveBitcoin needs, we need to be giving Bitcoin to politicians, but even more importantly, the children of politicians, as well as the children of major financial players.
And to me, the huge advantage that GiveBitcoin has in this political context over just sending a political campaign Bitcoin, if you just send a political campaign Bitcoin, they're going to sell it for fiat immediately so that they can go pay for advertising or whatever.
Yeah, they're just going to pay for someone to do a goofy dance.
If you time lock it, now they've got like skin in the game through the next election even. So like they're thinking about, all right, we can use this money in like, maybe if we time lock it for like 3 years or something, you know, so they're thinking about ahead of the next election cycle, and they're long-term bullish on Bitcoin and not just using it for transactional purposes of like scamming Bitcoiners out of their Satoshis and then not living up to their promises.
Yeah, so we made the product choice to only do a 1-year time lock for small gifts. So $100 or less is only a 1-year time lock. If you have a larger gift, you can do it up to 5 years.
That's perfect. All right, I'm going to donate to the Bloomberg campaign for 5-year time lock. Yeah, no, he doesn't need any money.
No, he doesn't. We should get him to give some.
There's Marianne Williamson, the crystals lady, who probably does need money. But yeah, I think that the
crystals don't have as good of a stock to flow ratio.
Let's not get political, Michael. Jeez. All right, the crystal stock to flow ratio is perfect.
Crystals are unique. They're more like an NFT.
Yeah. We just need to get Plan B to take a look at the quantitative metrics of it.
Maybe we've been using the wrong currency this whole time.
Perhaps.
Crystals.
Yeah.
You know, those charts with all the different colors on the same chart, they do kind of look like some strange hippie tie-dye aura thing.
Yeah. The rainbow charts.
Yeah. Oh, man. So you guys hit on something kind of interesting, just thinking about like how important Bitcoin is because it's like half of every transaction. One of the most fun things, you know, that I found over the past, you know, year and a half or so is starting with Bitcoin and then branching out to other interests that you have in common. And I think kind of that's where this thing will go as a community, because you can talk about Bitcoin all day, but at the end of the day, you get together with like a bunch of hardcore Bitcoiners. And we saw this at a brunch when Svetsky was in town from Sydney in LA, and it was like me and him and Breedlove and like Brecky and some other people. And it's like, we're all kind of just like saying the same thing and like kind of believe the same thing. And it's like, okay, so what's for lunch? and so it's been really fun. It's like, I've tried to either start or kind of like get involved in communities that are talking about Bitcoin and something else. So, you know, I think, you know, Russell and George and the Bitcoin is thing, like that's super important for new coiners. But once you're already a Bitcoiner, it's kind of fun to talk about like Bitcoin and geopolitics or, you know, some specific area of it. So, you know, talk about Bitcoin mining specifically, or, you know, Bitcoin and entrepreneurship, some of these types of things. Like,
I think you're so right. I mean, in my highly controversial talk from August, I talked about, you know, the importance of echo chambers. And what was really meant by that was being able to have a group of people that you can have a long form discussion with, where you've already established the sort of the axioms, so to speak, like your priors. And so you can move on from there, and actually you know that person is going to have a fruitful discussion with you, and you're not going to get bogged down in whatever. You can actually explore new things together. So I think this makes perfect sense, and also explains, I think, why, you know, Bitcoiners do veer off into their various you know, subcultures and stuff in that way, is because, yeah, you meet a Bitcoiner. I meet new Bitcoiners all the time, and we're already best friends as soon as we meet, because we already know, you know, we share a very similar outlook on money, which implies a very similar outlook on, you know, government and politics and life and like all this stuff. And so it easily leads to exploring new ideas together in an actually fruitful way, as opposed to kind of the opposite online, where everything is so, you know, conflict oriented.
Yeah. One of my favorites of Bitcoin and is the Bitcoin Rabbi. First of all, because he also did, he doesn't just do Bitcoin and Judaism, he did Bitcoin and kids with his book, which I've actually read it to my kid. My son's almost 2, so he doesn't quite, you know, understand the nuances of what's going on in Bitville, but it's still, I think, yeah, exactly. And Michael's got his copy here behind the Golden Gate Bridge.
There you go.
And then on the Judaism side, you know, there's so many parallels in religion, and religion talks about money a lot. And it's interesting because it's so taboo to talk about money. It's one of those topics that people shy away from in social contexts. So I almost feel like part of the advantage of Bitcoin is not having to talk about money with other people. And it kind of creates an arm's length relationship with the topic while also, you know, promoting Bitcoin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's totally right. Like there are some people that you want to handhold for the next, you know, 6 months or 12 months or the rest of your life, maybe, be their Bitcoin IT support. But sometimes you don't want to do that, and you just want to like give them a decent shot. And know you've kind of, you know, you've done some of your duty to help them along their path, and, you know, it may take or it may not, but at least they own some Bitcoin.
I wonder if we could take Haas's thing literally of tithing and do give Bitcoin to a church, or to another religious institution where it is time locked? Or is that kind of seen as like, kind of manipulative and crass? I don't know. It might not be.
I don't think it's manipulative or crass. We absolutely intend for people to use this. Right now, you have to have like an email address, and it's like a human that has to KYC. But we are definitely adding institutions. You may actually be able to KYC with an institutional account today, and have somebody own it. I got to check on that, but it's definitely on the roadmap for us. And yeah, I'd be much more likely to give like an alma mater, 5-year time locked Bitcoin than cash today. Absolutely.
Yeah, because they're going to squander it on, some buying fiat with their Bitcoin instead of putting it into their perpetual trust. And they have these, they have endowments, but maybe they should think about it as like, hey, give Bitcoin as a way to add to our endowment, even though our portfolio manager is a default Keynesian who doesn't want to add Bitcoin to the portfolio.
Well, and our alma mater has one of the largest endowments of any university in the country. I think it's number 3.
With lots of oil, and yet
and gold, if I remember correctly.
And gold, and that's why the state of Texas is building a bullion depository here in Austin. But the other thing is that, like, my alma mater got a gift not from Bitcoiners but from Ripple, and then lo and behold, a researcher at my alma mater comes out with a report about how. A completely spurious report about how one whale using tethers was able to manipulate Bitcoin to $20,000, which is totally absurd. If you look at any of the data.
Meanwhile, they're never pinging, their a couple
alumni.
Of who are some very, rather prominent Bitcoiners. We're happy to.
Your ego is out of control right now. But yeah, so I think that people are no better than their incentives, and so I think that if the incentives are aligned, which time locking does help align them, that it'll get a better result than what we've seen.
What do you guys think would make a lot of people want to do repeat purchase of Bitcoin and just like set it and forget it?
That's a really good question.
I mean, I think it comes down to just the savings mentality.
Yeah.
I've had great success with some people when what got to them out of all they listened to me for years talking about Bitcoin. They even read the Bitcoin Standard. They kind of got that it was this thing out there, but they never really had the motivation to go, buy themselves until I pointed out that it was like Bitcoin is one of the few ways that a millennial can actually think about saving, because everything else is just such a crapshoot, and it's so who knows what the market is going to do. But Bitcoin, we have this pretty strong inclination towards it becoming this very large thing, and so it actually becomes a meaningful savings device of something they can't take away. Even if the market has a turn or whatever, you still at least have your Bitcoins if the market turns around, which I guess is the same with like real property. But millennials certainly, you can't go buy a house if you're deep in debt, and you don't want to go even deeper in debt. But people can buy small amounts of Bitcoin just as something that they can feel like they can hold on to. And pointing out that it was something that millennials can actually save changes a person's mind, and now they're doing daily buys.
I like that. It's like fractional real estate on the UTXO set.
And I think that part of the challenge of saving, right, is of just having a budget and of understanding, all right, what's my income? Like, how much do I have to spend every day? And we've seen startups try to tackle that, of helping people understand where their money is going. And then at the end of, like, let's say you're quote unquote living paycheck to paycheck, but you do still have some money left over after 2 weeks, having that sweep into Bitcoin, so that you're essentially, you're doing a recurring buy based on how much money you have left over after 2 weeks. rather than trying to pre-calculate it beforehand, which takes more cognitive thought. So maybe that would be something to look at.
Maybe. I think the hooks into the bank account and the balance and the paycheck and all of that might be a little bit tough.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But yeah, I mean, it's been done before by Acorns, kind of, with action roundups and stuff like that. I'm definitely of the mind of, it's kind of like a rich dad, poor dad thing, like pay yourself first. And it's like the one thing you're going to want to do no matter what, even if it means falling behind on something else, like sock away some Bitcoin every month, and then your creative brain will like work out the rest. But at least you're socking away this, 2% or 5% or whatever.
All you got to do is teach people about fasting, and then they can save a lot of money.
Keynes was right.
Yeah, and also not getting haircuts. So like that way you just save a little bit at a time. The other part is that I've heard people say that they'll be out at a bar, and instead of buying another drink, they'll open up Cash App and they'll buy like $5 more worth of Bitcoin, because that's like a way to make themselves feel good about foregoing the present consumption, is that they have that immediate feedback. And so like gamifying that somehow, I don't know what it would look like, but
that's really interesting, because all the people like talking about habits. You have like the habits of highly effective people and James Clear's stuff, and so much of the stuff around habits is they talk about that reward. So that one's really interesting, because usually the rewards described in this process of establishing a new habit is something that's in itself hedonistic, but for a good cause, because it's like, I'm enjoying this thing as a reward for having done the hard work. And so you're training yourself to do the hard work. But to do that puts it on its head, because it's like, not only did you just forego the thing that you don't think that you should be engaging in, you just also foregoed other economic opportunities thinking about your future. So it's actually like delayed gratification squared.
Right. Also, understanding the present value, right? So just take like the S2F model, the bullish scenario, and then when someone's buying Bitcoin, like tell them like, hey, this is what it'll be worth, right? So that you're enticing them, because at the end of the day, that's what people want, is they want their purchasing power to increase. And so you can dumb it down to number go up or whatever, but the bottom line is that, hey, if we think this is a good valuation model for Bitcoin, and if we're bullish on Bitcoin, why not tell people that, hey, no guarantees, obviously, but this is where we see it going, and kind of putting the money in front of them.
You guys want to write a webpage? We're working on it over the holiday. We've got to make the case for Bitcoin in like one single page long scroll. Should be fun.
Just number go up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, no, it's true. I think save Bitcoin as number go up, and give Bitcoin as Bitcoin fixes this, right? So I think we got them both covered. It's pretty good. I should have mentioned, by the way, that Michael, the rabbi, is also another advisor and has already been interviewed.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember him telling me that. Yeah.
You got some Keras.
Great form of tzedakah.
Yeah, you've got a powerful team that you have built together there.
I mean, we're excited about it. We really wanted it to be really good. I think we're in, it's funny. I think of us as kind of like an on-ramp, but since Jan's come on board, he just tells everybody we're an education company. Like, we just do Bitcoin education. And I was like, well, I guess that is kind of like actually how we spend all of our time. And then it's like, you just tell people about Bitcoin and then kind of like have the purchase available.
Right.
So that's what we do.
It's a reward. It's which is way better than the traditional education system, where you end up with a piece of paper, fiat education. With this one, you learn, and at the end you get hard money.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, one of the things we were thinking about, and I just had this idea, seeing a bunch of Harleys go by my car on the 101 the other day, was talking about like kind of cults or sort of in groups, and how maybe one of the things to do would be to like go sort of group by group and kind of infiltrate with like Bitcoin and CrossFit, Bitcoin and Harleys. It's definitely working with carnivores and paleo, but kind of like, and obviously like the Free State movement was probably the first of those. But I'm curious if people that are already used to that situation of being on firm footing and being able to have the long dialogues with sort of the shared understanding of something would be more amenable and just in a better mind frame and a mindset to accept Bitcoin.
So I think yes, and the reason, and it's actually the reason why I love the Bitcoin fixes this meme, is because I unironically think that Bitcoin fixes an incredible amount of social pathologies, and with each of these groups, the very notion of having an out group is that you view something on a positive side, just like different about yourself. But many times there's also the negative aspect of something's wrong with everyone else. Like the CrossFitter is going to feel like everyone else is not active enough, or a certain dieter is everyone's eating trash food, or what have you. A lot of groups will have feelings like that, and so if you can include Bitcoin in part of that narrative, so they can understand, for instance, like, why is it that, the food is the way that it is? Is there a connection to Bitcoin? I personally think there is. You can pitch that to them. I've talked to, architecture students, and I have rather strong feelings about modern architecture and how I think it's all garbage, and all the buildings need to be torn down. But once again, you can look at some of the arguments that Safe put out, and I think they're very good arguments as to why, well, here's why architecture went in this direction. And even if you're into something like sustainable architecture, here's why that old architecture was actually more sustainable, because they had to think on, very long time frames. So you need, materials that can last that long. You have to deal with the climate, instead of just fiat, just throw air conditioning to solve all the problems, or, all these issues that go on in this. Point being is like something like architecture. You can go to that group and it's like, oh, Bitcoin's actually a part of that. And Bitcoin fixes this is that wedge into that with any of those groups, because, because money touches half of every economic exchange, it's no surprise that bad money has a bad effect on the entire economy as a whole. And so everyone is going to have some personal connection to a problem that is deeply connected to the rotten financial system that Bitcoin fixes.
You can almost go like chart by chart and see what's described in the title of, WTF happened in 1971. And like, there's a group that's sort of associated with each of those, right?
Yes.
It's probably
yes.
like, nurses and doctors pissed off that, basically there's still as many as them and they don't get paid more, but it costs 50 times more because it's all going to administrators.
Yeah.
Or universities, like, the profs have larger classes and more of the money just keeps going to the growing bureaucracy.
I tend to think too that a lot of the social discomforts, or I should say like political discomforts that people have, people are getting drawn to very strong political opinions about stuff. I think a lot of that, which also goes in hand with, calls for government action, et cetera, et cetera. I tend to think that a lot of that itself is downstream from the feeling of economic uncertainty. Like, how do I know I'm going to have food? We see this like with the healthcare stuff. It seems like people's ultimate fear is like, how am I going to pay for the healthcare? Well, if Bitcoin makes people eat better and it makes people think more long-term about their, body as capital, then perhaps the incentives towards how you work with healthcare and you actually do have the money to pay for things, right, has a big effect on that. So I tend to think a lot of those people's feelings are downstream from that. So the amount of these groups, I think, is a very, very large amount of groups, probably all of them.
Well, like the one that I found fascinating that I actually wasn't really expecting is the prison population per capita. It starts skyrocketing in 1971. And it's like they wouldn't be able to build out this entire prison industrial complex if we actually had to pay for it out of pocket. Like, oh yeah, people would be, raising alarms of like, yeah, look, we're building all of these facilities and it's a historical aberration. Like, what are we? And you can talk about the war on drugs.
It doesn't help the crime situation anyway.
Yeah, not at all.
Violent crime goes up.
Yeah.
And so clearly like the system, you have to pay for it, and then it doesn't even do the job that the thing's supposed to do.
Yeah. So in any case, yeah, lots of wedges.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is the cult of cults.
I agree with that. I've always described it. I mean, in our investor pitches, I usually describe, because some people are Bitcoiners, like half our money so far has come from Bitcoiners and half from people that, think it's an interesting thing, but are not investing in Bitcoin, but they'll invest in the equity of a Bitcoin company. And for those people, I just have to explain like what a cult this is and why we get like, we don't have to pay much or really anything for marketing, because Bitcoiners will market you if you're aligned with Bitcoin. And, I always use the CrossFit example. I'm like, I was a CrossFitter, 10 years ago. Bitcoiners are like 10 times worse or better, depending on your point of view, than CrossFitters were in like 2009, 2010.
It's going places.
This Bitcoin thing, it's got legs.
Go up.
Yeah. It's funny because one of the objections to the stock to flow model is that demand is not a part of the equation. And my reaction to that is like, well, yeah, demand's a given. Like, you're going to have a bunch of shills go out there and promote the crap out of this. And so it's just part of it.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out for sure. It's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, we're coming up on an hour now.
Right.
Cory, did you want to wrap up with some links and some things people should go check out?
Sure. So we're give_Bitcoin on Twitter, and I pollute our Twitter feed pretty steadily, so you can find me there, Cory Klippsten. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, and let's see, the website is GiveBitcoin.io. We'll be pretty noisy on Twitter and on the website when we officially launch the Save Bitcoin app. But yeah, I would say give and request Bitcoin for Christmas if that's your thing. Otherwise, birthdays, other holidays. It's the thoughtful gift of better money. We say like throughout history.
Yeah.
What is it?
Make 8 requests for Bitcoin on Hanukkah.
Absolutely. Yeah, one for each candle, man. Make it happen. Absolutely. 1/8 of a Bitcoin every day. That's what it should be. Ended up being a full Bitcoin.
Wasn't the dollar an 1/8 of an ounce or something like that? I remember there was like, or doubloons.
20th.
Yeah. But
I know that pieces of 8 was certainly something that pirates used to say for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now we know where they got it from. They got it from Give Bitcoin.
That was going to be my conclusion as well. Awesome. Well, good to see you guys. Pierre, I'm sure I'll see you soon at some sort of meeting in Middle America about North American mining or something.
Of course.
I'm coming to Austin either the 15th, 16th, or 22nd, 23rd of January. I think you guys probably know I'm an advisor to Unchained, so I'm going to spend time with those guys. Wonderful. And then a bunch of the mining executives are getting like a little mini conference together in Austin, which you guys should come and hang out for a little bit. A lot of these big mining projects, we're going to get together and just chat a bit.
Excellent.
Very cool. Yeah, we got to get more Bitcoin mining in North America. I think that's crucial from a geopolitical perspective.
LFG NABTC.
I don't know what that acronym means, and I don't know if I should ask.
It's just let's effing go. North America Bitcoin. That's all.
Got it. All right. Thanks for your time, Cory. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.